What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We're back with another This or That. We're talking Jonathon Brooks versus Trey Benson. And who are you drafted in your rookie drafts? It's going to be a little bit of fun, this one. These are two running backs that definitely saw the draft capital that we like. And these are two guys that, when you're looking at rookie drafts right now, you're picking between both of these guys if you need a running back. And it's a fun battle. We got Trey Benson going to the Cardinals, Jonathon Brooks to the Panthers. Very good spots for both. Good offensive systems, and it's going to be a lot of fun watching their kind of their career unfold. But let's get into where their ADP is right now. Trey Benson is at 203, running back 2. And then Jonathon Brooks is kind of sitting at that late first, 112 running back 1 mark. But Brooks is ADP running back 1 when you're looking at most ADP out there. But really, if you need a running back, you're picking between these two. So ADP to me is like, well, it just depends. Where are these guys going in your drafts? Realistically, where I've seen Brooks at 109 in a draft. I haven't seen Trey in the first round. Have you seen Trey Benson in the first round at all?
That might be a spoiler for the rest of
Okay.
the video.
See, that's what happens. I go off script. Don't go off script. All right. So let's get into Trey. Let's have you talk about Trey, what he did in college, and then we'll dive into kind of what his outlook looks like.
Yeah, so Trey Benson, we've talked about this before in other circles, but he had kind of a disappointing year. I think the beginning of his season was certainly not as good as we had hoped following a really good 2022 where he was super explosive. He wasn't used a whole lot. There were some Dameon Pierce vibes where you were like, yeah, I see the talent, but why wasn't he getting the ball more? And then 2023 comes around. He still didn't get the ball a whole lot, but also the efficiency came down early in the year. When Jordan Travis went down, and towards the end of the season, he really came on strong. He looked like that explosive back that we saw at times in 2022. I don't know if he was dealing with like a nagging injury at the beginning of the season, but he ended up with a really good stat line, 906 yards, 14 touchdowns, 20 receptions, 227 yards, and a touchdown through the air. Stats ended up being good enough, right? Like really you're looking for enough production that the NFL is going to be interested in you on day 2. That happened for Trey Benson. I don't think the stats are the only thing that caused that because the film was really good, like I mentioned. So from an explosiveness burst perspective, this was one of my favorite backs coming into last year. I think when you look at what he's able to do when he kicks the ball outside, he consistently beats defenders to the edge. He's got that quick burst. He can get you 5 to 6 yards on any given carry, but he also has that long speed. We saw that at the NFL Combine. He's a great athlete. We saw that all over the film as well. He's going into a situation where you've highlighted it a lot, but like he's better than James Conner probably right now. And so you look at what the split could be. It reminds me a lot of the Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams that first year where everyone was like, yeah, Melvin Gordon's kind of getting old. He's not as good as he once was. And Javonte Williams took some of that workload that first year. I do think that Trey Benson has such a different skill set from James Conner that we're going to see him on the field immediately. I think he's going to have a pretty impactful role, maybe 8 to 12 touches to start the season, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's getting 16 to 18 carries down the stretch because this offense is going to want to run the ball a little bit despite all the wide receivers that they've added. So to me, Trey Benson can finish as a top 20 back as early as this year. And with the volatility of running backs, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a top 12, top 15 season from Trey Benson this year.
Yeah, we did a big rookie guide, and I did a lot of the running backs, and I was charting these guys and kind of going through them. Benson was that guy to me. I was like, man, he does a lot of great things. A combination of burst and long speed. He has it. It's not like the greatest long speed, but it's doable. It's enough. You don't have to have I think long speed's kind of overrated at times when we're looking at prospects, but it's good enough, right? Good, and his footwork. Like he always had really good footwork and quickness in open lanes. Like when I was going through him, I was like, man, I just kept coming back to Trey and watching his film. And then he found a spot. And pre-draft, I went on a show, I Player Profile. I was talking to him. I said, the most underrated spot is the Cardinals. When you're looking at what they were able to do last year, they established their identity on the ground, average almost 140 yards per game, top 5 in that category. And that was with James Conner, and who, guess what, missed because of injury. Have you ever heard that before with James Conner? So that's something to know when you're thinking about Trey Benson and his long-term outlook. James Conner just can't stay healthy. He's good when he's out there, and they're definitely going to eat into other usage. And that example that you use is a very good example there in terms of probably what we're seeing with that Gordon kind of split. But Benson by week 11 might be that guy you're like, damn, I'm plugging in my lineups on a Dynasty win now team, and I have Benson as my running back one. And I like this, and I love the volume that's coming there. The biggest thing for him, he's got to improve his pass blocking. So if I was going to look at something like on the back end, like, okay, hey, probably going to have to learn that a little bit. I mean, the health as a knee thing is not really a determinant for me anymore because running backs are valued as what they do for you tomorrow. So I'm not really care. I don't really care about that based on where his value is right now. But I mean, he's not very creative in open field. I know that. When you look at him, he's going to put his head down. He's going to run right through you, but he fits this team. He fits this mold. And he fits this identity there. Now, going over to Jonathon Brooks, this kid was special in the beginning of the season. Now, full disclosure, I'm a Brooks guy. I love Brooks. I'm more than Christian. I was one of those guys that I was like, hey, I love this guy. And he kept crapping on my Brooks take. Like, he's like, were they really even worse after he got injured? And I was like, yeah, come on. Like, he did well there. He had 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns. Obviously towards ACL in November, but seems like he's going to be healthy, ready to go there. And he's filled in for Bijan Robinson in that Texas offense. And he looked good when he did it. Like, the things that stood out to me when I was going over just what he did well on tape, and I really dived into him because I really went back and forth on where I should rank him when I was doing my initial rankings. Very patient. And I know I comped him to Le'Veon Bell from college, the way he was very patient and instinctive runner, allows him to open up holes. Like, he does that really well. The question is Carolina's offense and that offensive line, is that a good fit? I think that is the key. But when you're looking at Dave Canale's offense and he's bringing over what he did with Rachaad White was a top 5 guy in that offense. And part of that reason was because of the patience that Rachaad White did. Brooks and Rachaad White also, to me, have some similarities as runners. There's a reason why he went out and got him. Very good lower body strength, very good contact balance. Brooks has that very well. And then the thing that stands out to me, he's a very good pass catcher. 25 catches, 286 yards. Like, nothing amazing, nothing really pops out there, but is doable there to where he's a 3-down guy. The thing with Brooks and Benson, they're both 3-down guys. They can both do it all here. That's why you like them. That's why they're vaulted up into that running back one. Hey, which one are we taking here? But when you look at it on the flip side, so if you look at their depth chart, he's got a little bit crowded. I don't want to say crowded, like too crowded. Miles Sanders, the real reason why he's there is that contract is kind of unmovable this year. Chuba Hubbard's fine, but we've seen what he is. Like, I see some takes out there about Hubbard, and it's like, well, if they were really built in and long-term with this, their new staff as well, Hubbard, they wouldn't have drafted a running back as early as they did. I like what they built around them. This positionless offense is something I love what Carolina's bringing in. I think they want playmakers in space, and they need him for Bryce. I think they're really looking at a way to utilize that rushing attack and protect Bryce and make Bryce more efficient. Now that they have Deontay, they have Xavier Leggett, they have Adam Thielen, they have those guys there. You have to like that, what they brought in, but they're going to protect Bryce. And how are they going to do that? With the rushing attack. So you're going to see volume. I think that you really are going to see volume there. Again, they did add to that offensive line too. So I know they got Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt, which is good. You want them to kind of come in there at that offensive line, but they're not the best offensive line out there when we're thinking of like where he landed and where he went to. So it's going to have to be an improvement there from that. Now, from weaknesses, and then I'll kick it over to Christian. The ACL tear, lateral agility, how does that look? How does that, I think it might take him some time to kind of come off of this ACL. We've seen that with running backs. It's going to take him a few, especially coming into the NFL. I think we have to be patient with him a little bit there. The weight's fine. The strength's got to be there. And I think just the new system might take some time as he kind of a new offense, quarterback, everything there. And I think that both these guys have a solid upside.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, this was a spot that I think a lot of people right after the draft were saying, oh my God, what a terrible spot for Jonathon Brooks. I look at this as one of the most perfect spots. I know the offensive line, we talked about their additions. There's not much depth. So if anyone gets hurt on this offensive line, it's going to be problematic. But
it does like that in the NFL. There's not a lot of depth out there at all at the offensive line position.
Right. And I think when you look at when Bryce Young was the most successful, he had Jahmyr Gibbs as his running back. And Jahmyr Gibbs was a very big factor in the passing attack at Alabama. There's some Gibbs to Brooks. I think there are times, I don't think he's as explosive or as fast or as, game breaking, I guess I would say. Yeah. But I also think that there's enough shiftiness and there's enough pass catching work that you can use Brooks in a similar way to, like you said, Rachaad White, but also Jahmyr Gibbs at Alabama, where you're like, okay, maybe Brooks takes a little bit of time to get into this rushing attack at the NFL level, but you know what we can do? We can run him on Texas routes. So we can run him out into the flat and let him just work in space. I think those are things that this offense is going to do. When you add that to the fact that, like, yes, they added Deontay Johnson, they added Xavier Legette, I think that those are good things, but also there's still a need for playmakers on this team. Tommy Tremble is the starting tight end. Jatavian Sanders is a day 3 rookie, Jonathan Brooks' teammate, that I think they're going to be relying on to do some things out there. So this team will not lack for a need for explosiveness. And I think Jonathan Brooks, when he's fully healthy, we talked about Benson in the back half of this season. I think Brooks is going to be pretty similar in that down the stretch. I think both of these guys can be plugged into your lineup. You're feeling pretty good about that as at least RB2s. And so to me, this landing spot was as ideal as I could come up with outside of maybe Dallas. Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, don't worry. Dallas didn't take anybody. They're still looking. They got Zeke. But yeah, when you're looking at this, when you go overall, like when we're going to dive into like who we're picking here, and if we're on the clock, where are we leaning? I think both guys are great choices at their current ADP, right? So if you miss out on Brooks and still able to get Benson, I think you'd be happy. But if you're sitting there on the clock, we have to make the tough decisions. We don't skirt those decisions. We go with our mouth. We talk about it. We get YouTube commenters mad at us. I do think Brooks has upside, like you just mentioned. He's not that game breaker like Gibbs and those type of things that you mentioned. But his patience and his ability to kind of find the open holes and stuff. Red zone to me just screams red zone. They need a red zone threat in the running back room because I think they have struggled there in the past. And we've seen them kind of do that. So that's where I think Brooks could be that touchdown guy because James Conner's probably going to vulture some from Trey Benson in a while based on where their track record is. But if I'm on the clock, I'm taking Trey Benson. I'm leaning there. He is my running back one right now based on his landing spot. I just love him in this offense, in Drew Petzing's offense, in this scheme. And I think that when you look at it, I think he is their clear running back one next year. Like after Connor leaves or whatever they do there, like Trey's going to be their guy where you're full volume there. And I believe they want to run inside out, and they're going to open up for Kyler Murray on the outside. Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, these guys there, Zay Jones now, these other guys, Michael Wilson, that's going to open up that offense where you're not going to see crowded boxes anymore. And Trey's going to really benefit from that. And I think he's one of those guys that's solid running back too, upside there. And I think Brooks can be that as well. But for me, I like Benson being able to give me volume. I keep talking about what are they going to do for me next game. Benson, I lean that way based on him being out there sooner, ready to go, and James Conner be in front of him, who I don't really trust staying on the field.
Yeah. I'm also taking Benson. And the flip side of this is that I think when you look at this from a dynasty perspective, I think you can make an argument that Jonathan Brooks is the better 2024 finisher when all is said and done because of that James Conner loom that's kind of on that offense. And I do think they will utilize Conner, like you mentioned, and especially in the red zone. So I think we could see a better season out of Jonathan Brooks, if only because he catches a few more passes and because they don't have a ton of playmakers. On the flip side of things, if I am getting a running back that I'm building around, and that's my young running back to build around, I'd rather go with the offense that I have more faith in. And right now, that would be the Arizona Cardinals with Marvin Harrison Jr., with Kyler Murray, with Trey McBride. There's just a lot going right for the Cardinals. As a team, I think they're in a good position to become, legitimate playoff contenders pretty quickly. To me, that means that they're going to rely on Trey Benson for the length of his rookie deal. I think from a dynasty perspective, I want to add Trey Benson to my team a little bit more than I want Jonathan Brooks, but I do want to just make it clear that this is very close. Like, this is a very tough decision. And to me, I don't necessarily think you can go wrong. The reason I said that there was a spoiler alert, I've taken Benson in the first round. I needed a running back desperately, and I've made mistakes of not drafting. They say don't draft for need, but I've gone the other way, and I've built a really bad roster. So sometimes you do have to draft for need. In that situation, it was the 112. I took Trey Benson over Jonathan Brooks, who went one pick after. So that was the decision at hand. I went Benson. I'll lean with my gut here.
I'm on a comparison trip lately because I'm old, but this reminds me of Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs the year that they came out and having that kind of. Now they were going to the first round, but like Josh Jacobs, the Trey Benson mold, kind of like Miles Sanders, Jonathan Brooks kind of mold. Like, who do you like? But they both found great spots to me, and I really like both these sides. And at the end of the day, like both of them turned out to be pretty good fantasy running back twos. I don't see them as running back ones. Trey might be able to get there. Maybe Brooks does. I guess what determines like I guess what I mean by running back one is like dynasty top 5 guy moving forward, right? Because everybody can kind of be a back end running back one. I think James Cook almost did it. So like there are guys like that can do it at the back end.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree there. So.
All right, let's get out of here on that. But go check out our Patreon. You can find it at patreon.com/theDevy We go over all this. It's not just Devy. It is Dynasty as well. We're going a little drafts, kind of draft content as well. Once I kick. So if you like our work, if you are following us from other places, come support us there. It's $5 a month, man. That's like freaking gallon of gasoline out here in California. So you could just drop $5 for us. We'd really appreciate it just so that we can keep giving you the content that we're producing. So see you guys on the next one.